Hello everyone, Katarina here, welcome! If you have been following my channel for a while, you probably have noticed that I like to create simple cards, preferably that don't take too much time to make. And today I have for you 3 easiest cards you can make, perfect for beginners, and they are also very quick to make. First, let's talk about the supplies. Remember, this is not about the brands I'm using. You can use whatever you already have or can afford. For this project, I'm using watercolors, more specifically the Kansai Tampi from Kuretake. It's a palette with many colors, which is great, so I don't have to be mixing my own colors. You can also use other products, acrylic paints, markers, or just a black pen is also fine. Since I'm using watercolors, I'm using watercolor cardstock. I bought this cardstock in the size A5 and it's only 200 grams. This is perfect for those of you who don't have a separate blank card where you glue your final panel and will need to fold your cardstock. This project doesn't need too much water, so lighter cardstock is fine as it's easier to fold. When it comes to the brushes, I'm going to be using both round and flat. Maybe the flat brush might be better for all of these cards, but I thought not everybody has them and both brushes are fine. I started by cutting my cardstock in half since it was A5, and later I will be gluing it onto a separate card base. But as I said, you can use the whole A5 sheet, paint on the bottom part and fold it in half. Let's move on to my first card idea, which is painting a row of candles. You can use whatever colors you want. I picked blues and greens and painted a row of stripes. I started in the middle. I thought that this makes the most sense as I wanted to have equal numbers on each side. I left enough space at the bottom just in case I want to add a greeting and on the top for the flame. I was using a round brush here, but if you have a flat brush, this might be even easier to paint. I let the pieces dry and then I painted the wicks, which are just short black lines. I used a very small brush for this. If you don't have one, you can just use something like a black pen. If you're using watercolors, make sure it's waterproof. Here is an example where I drew them with a black fine liner. Of course, you could use the tip of a round brush if you want, but if you don't have a steady hand, a smaller brush or a black pen is much easier. Next, I painted the flame. The wicks weren't fully dry and mixed with the yellow at the beginning. I also swapped the yellow because the one that I started with was a little bit too cool. If you want, you could add orange and red at the bottom of the flame, but these are quick and easy cards. I didn't want to overcomplicate it. If you would like to add more details to the candles, you could use the black pen and add an outline, and you could also decorate them. You could add stripes, dots, wavy lines, stars, and so on, as I did in this example. I will show you the finished pieces at the end, so let's move on to the second card, which is a card where I painted a birthday cake. Here I'm using pinks, but as always, you can use whatever color you prefer, and again, I'm painting stripes. I'm using 1/4 inch flat brush. The idea was painting the stripes by decreasing the opacity of the color for each line. I saw it somewhere on Pinterest and I liked it. Of course, you can keep it with the same opacity or use multiple colors. I painted 5 stripes and after the piece was dry, I painted in a few candles using this mint color. These are tiny stripes that I painted with the flat brush. And this time using the fine liner I drew the wicks and I also painted the flame using the yellow watercolor. Alternatively, to draw the candles, you can use the black pen, as I did in this example. Maybe add icing, which for me was just a wavy line at the top. You can also outline each of the stripes and add a stand for the cake. Alright, for the final card, I painted a present with a bow. The idea was to make a birthday card, but technically this can be also a Christmas card. I wanted the present to be a lighter shade as I'm going to be adding details on top, so I diluted purple paint with a little bit more water. To paint a present is very simple. You either paint a square or a rectangle. I painted here a rectangle. I started with a flat brush and ended up switching to a round brush, so both are fine. After the piece was dry, I painted a bow. If you have never painted or drew a bow, it's very simple. Here is an example that I did with a pen. I drew 2 raindrop shapes or loops that are joined at the bottom, and connected to the bottom I drew wavy lines for the strings. You can practice on a printer paper first with a pencil if you are not comfortable, but trust me, this is very simple to draw. I was surprised when I drew it for the first time. For the bow, I used dark pink. I painted the bow on the top, and I also added a vertical line across the present. I was thinking adding a horizontal line as well. I tried that on my practice piece here on the left, and it looked weird, in my opinion. On the right, just like with the other examples, I also used the black pen to decorate the present. I drew the bow on the top and added both horizontal and vertical lines. Here it works for some reason. And I also added the dots across the panel just to decorate it. These examples are additional options you have. I recently discovered that using a black pen and outlining the piece and adding some details often helps the look, especially when I'm not happy with the piece. To finish up the cards, on all of the panels I painted the edges using gold paint. This is optional. I like to add borders to my panels. If you don't have gold, you could use the same color you used for the painting. I also like to use black or brown. I decided not to add any greeting on the panel with the candles, but I did write happy birthday on the other 2. I first wrote it with a pencil so I can erase and rewrite if needed, and then I wrote over it with a black fineliner. You could also add splatter if you want, which surprisingly I did not do this time. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed these 3 card ideas and will give them a try. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. If you would like to see more card ideas that are beginner friendly, you can check out this playlist that I created that is on your screen. And also let me know if there are any card ideas that you would like me to create. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.